2018, and it does not look like it's going to be that bad right now, but it still will be difficult in those areas that experienced it before, particularly around the PD and the Edisto rivers, which are expected to crest this weekend. And I want to emphasize again that even though it's not raining, the wind's not blowing, there's still a lot of danger from this moving water. And where you see it ponding, that doesn't mean it's clean and that the children are supposed to play in it, because there's no telling what's in it from all the overflows. There's a lot of danger there. And again, don't drive on roads, don't drive on water in roads, because there's a lot of danger there as well. But I want to thank everybody for their cooperation. Team South Carolina has really come through. We know the work's not through yet. And after the flooding's over, then we'll have a lot of cleaning up to do. But I want to thank all the citizens for their participation. They were listening, watching, paying attention. They were being smart, they were being safe, and they were being good neighbors, and it has worked. So with that, we'll have probably our last session of formal reports like this, unless something changes. So, John Quirello.
Thank you, Governor. After making landfall near Bulls Bay, South Carolina, around 2 a.m. this morning, Debby is now located about 55 miles east-southeast of Charlotte, which is pretty much right on the state line, and has wind speeds of 40 miles per hour. I'm happy to share that Debby has increased its forward speed to 10 miles per hour and should lift into North Carolina shortly. However, we have ongoing flooding concerns and rising rivers that we still need to contend with. The highest winds associated with Debby's landfall today were 48 miles per hour at North Myrtle Beach, 47 miles per hour at Spring Maid Pier, 45 miles an hour at Fripp Island, 44 miles an hour at Marlborough Airport, and 43 miles per hour even well inland at Rock Hill. While gusty winds could persist today, gusting as high as 20 to 30 miles per hour, even up to about 40 miles an hour closer to the Charlotte area, they should be diminishing through tonight and into Friday as Debby departs. Bands of heavy rainfall developed yesterday and have continued into this afternoon, mainly impacting the northeast portion of the state, including the PD, portions of the Charleston Tri-County area, the Catawba region, and the northern and eastern Midlands. 24-hour rainfall in these areas generally range from 4 to 7 inches, with the highest totals including 7 inches at Lynch's River in Florence County, 6 to 6.5 inches at Aner and Loris in Horry County, as well as in Mullins in Marion County, and even just over 6 inches in Rock Hill in York County. This rainfall has been sufficient to produce localized flash flooding. The flash flood threat could persist into tonight as outer bands from Debby continue to impact the area. The next phase of the event will be the considerable rises on area rivers, with many across the eastern part of the state expected to reach moderate flood stage and a few possibly major flood stage. Fortunately, we are not expecting rivers to reach the levels that we saw during Hurricanes Matthew or Florence, as the governor mentioned, but there is particular concern for major flooding on the PD at Cheraw, PD at PD, Little PD River near Galavant's Ferry, the Edisto River near Givens Ferry, and the French Quarter Creek near Yuji. Some of this river flooding, especially on the PD, will be long-lasting. The National Weather Service is working with DNR, SCEMD, other state agencies, and local authorities to assess the risk to communities along these rivers. So please continue to follow advice of local officials and avoid floodwaters. Forecast information, as well as the latest river forecasts, are available at weather.gov. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you very much. Kim Stenson.
Thank you, sir. Kim Stenson with the State Emergency Management Division. The State Emergency Operations Center, where we're at right now, remains at OPCON 1, which is our highest level of readiness. Priorities here haven't really changed too much since yesterday, supporting local shelter and possible localized evacuation operations, maintaining transportation lifelines, and planning for possible riverine flooding, especially in the PD area and along the Edisto River. We'll also be supporting damage assessment operations, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. We continue to communicate regularly with the local emergency managers across South Carolina to ensure resources and assistance are being deployed where they're needed the most. Our teams are ready to respond to any developments as Debby continues to move away from our state, including the recovery support. Right now, 6 counties are OPCON 1, which is our highest readiness level and is down from 11 yesterday. And 16 counties are at OPCON 2, which is our enhanced readiness level, and we expect that to move around over the next couple of days. County focus includes sheltering and possible rescue and local evacuation operations. Damage assessments are being conducted today in Bamberg, Berkeley, Charleston, Colleton, Dorchester, Florence, Jasper, Marion, and Orangeburg. Preliminary residential damage reports have been received from Berkeley, Charleston, and Colleton, with little change from yesterday, but the numbers did change slightly. We're looking right now at 70 homes with some level of damage, including 1 home that's been destroyed and 15 homes with major damage, and we'll continue to gather that information. Berkeley, Charleston, Colleton, and Horry are reporting a total of 16 businesses that have experienced some level of damage. And government infrastructure damage is being assessed and will continue to be assessed as we transition to riverine flooding operations and the resulting impacts from that. However, we'd like to note, though, that communications, which is an extremely critical part of our infrastructure, remains in excellent condition throughout the state. In the logistics area, we have fielded 213 requests ranging from sandbags to swiftwater rescue teams, of which 196 have been completed or in progress. Our public information phone system remains open for residents to call in with any questions, and that number is 1-866-246-0133. In closing, we'd like to remind everyone of several items. The first is to stay away from flooded areas and avoid taking any unnecessary risks. We also encourage the public to report any storm damage through the South Carolina Emergency Manager app, which is easily downloaded at your app store. And it's also important to stay connected with reliable sources for updates. Misinformation, as we mentioned yesterday, can be extremely dangerous, so please rely on official channels, including your local emergency management officials, for accurate information. And again, our website at scemd.org and our South Carolina Emergency Manager app remain and continue to be excellent sources of information. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Now, Brett Howard, who's our federal coordinating officer, and early this morning we had a lengthy visit from Robert Salmon, who is the regional administrator of the Federal Emergency Management Administration, and we appreciate the very full and active support.
You're welcome, Governor. It's a pleasure. Like I said many times, it is a real pleasure to be here in South Carolina and work with this great state. As you've heard, the shift is shifting a little bit. The governor referred to being in Act 3 on the flooding, and we still stand here to support the state with whatever resources they may need. In the background, getting ready for the final act, the long term, the long piece of this is the recovery. And so we'll be starting to roster and get ready for the state's request for joint preliminary damage assessments and help the state move to the recovery process as soon as they're ready. Right, we're not going to get ahead of the state. But we're going to be ready when they ask. That's all I have, Governor. Thank you.
Thank you. Major General Van McCarty, National Guard. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Governor. South Carolina National Guard continues to support the state in response to Tropical Storm Debby. We currently have about 450 soldiers still on duty. We have 66 high water vehicles that are deployed along the coast, with the bulk of those up in the northern part, 36. In the central, we have 26. And we're going to keep 4 in the southern area just to be able to respond to any needs that we may have with flooding on the Edisto. Still have debris clearing teams that are deployed and available, and 2 of our L&O teams are still supporting the counties. Nothing significant to report on our aviation capability. However, the skies seem to be clearing, and we should be able to support flight operations now from Georgetown south if the situation did occur. We're continuing now to evaluate the storm, determine what the needs will be, and we will begin to demob soldiers as quickly as we can. Many of these are traditional M-Day guardsmen that left their homes, they left their jobs to come and serve, and we want to start to redeploy them back to their traditional lives as soon as we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Secretary Justin Powell, Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Governor. The men and women of the South Carolina Department of Transportation continue to work around the clock in response and repair for Tropical Storm Debby. Because of the heavy rains that have been falling in the PD as well as in the Charlotte suburbs, our number of road closures are now at 111 statewide. That number will continue to change as this storm moves out. I'm happy to report, though, since the storm has begun, we have reopened 69 roads across the state that were closed due to the storm. Our focus right now in the Low Country and in the Midlands is really on assessing and repairing roads that were damaged during the storm. And we will prioritize that based on focusing on our primary routes first and then our secondary roads later. In the PD, as this is an active storm, we're actively engaged in response and preparing for any flooding. We have 18 assistance crews that are ready to move into the PD if necessary from the upstate to assist our personnel there. This has been a long event, so encourage motorists again to slow down, encourage them to avoid floodwaters, and if you find a DOT crew, a utility crew, a local public works crew working on the side of the road, be sure to slow down and give them the space that they need to do their jobs. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Director Robert Woods, Department of Public Safety.
Thank you, Governor. Rob Woods, South Carolina Department of Public Safety. With regard to our calls for service, what we're finding is they're trending back towards normal. On Tuesday, we were at 640 calls for service, and again, those are primarily from collisions, disabled motorists, and blocked roadways. We were at 640 on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we're at 537, so a little bit more than 100 below where we were. So again, we're moving back towards normal, and we would expect to be there by tomorrow morning. That said, we have 239 state law enforcement personnel from our Highway Patrol Division, State Transport Police Division, SLED, DNR, and Triple P still assigned to the Traffic Incident Response Mission on day shift today. Tonight, we'll start to draw down some of those personnel and getting our specialized units from the Highway Patrol and State Transport Police, as well as our state support agencies, demobilized so they can get back to their normal operations. We will tonight maintain 125 law enforcement personnel on the line patrol mission in the impacted area from the Midlands to the coast, so there'll still be 125 total out this evening. And as we go back to normal operations tomorrow for DPS, we'll transition into support for SLED and post-storm law enforcement missions, and in the PD specifically, we'll have 46 of our personnel assigned to support SLED if needed. That said, again, as a reminder, avoid travel when you can. If you have to travel, just be extra cautious while you're driving. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Chief Mark Keel, State Law Enforcement Division.
Good afternoon, Mark Keel, Chief of SLED. Again, SLED, DNR, Triple P, South Carolina Department of Corrections personnel, South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy personnel have 64 officers or agents that are supporting 4 missions across the state. 41 agents and officers have been supporting the Highway Patrol in Troops 5, 6, and 7. At 7 p.m. tonight, agents and officers that have been assigned to Troops 6 and 7 will begin to demobilize. And at 7 a.m. in the morning, the rest of those agents and officers that are supporting the Highway Patrol will demobilize and return to normal operations or be ready to assist other agencies or other counties that are needed. We have 4 agents and officers continuing to assist in Dorchester County Sheriff's Office with directed patrols and monitoring the roadways for flooding. We have 7 boat teams, 7 DNR and 7 SLED agents staged to assist patrol and evacuation missions in areas anticipated to flood. That coverage extends from Lakeview and Dillon to Hemingway in Williamsburg County along the PD River. We also have officers that are assigned here at SEOC that will continue to provide security here at the SEOC while it's open. Future operations, ESF 13, again, DNR, SLED, Triple P are planning river patrols along the Waccamaw River in Horry County and the Edisto River in Colleton County beginning Friday, August the 9th. We'll have 5 boat teams comprised of 1 DNR, 1 SLED, and 1 Triple P officer that'll be assigned to patrol and monitor the Waccamaw River and Intercoastal Waterway. And we'll have 2 boat teams comprised of the same personnel assigned to patrol and monitor the Edisto River. Our aviation assets are available and ready to for any damage assessment or rescues. And I will tell you that I've been in touch with all the sheriffs in the PD area of the state as we continue to monitor the rainfall in the upstate and see what the rivers are going to do, see how those areas are going to deal with the amount of water that's coming down from North Carolina. We will continue to monitor that, provide resources to those sheriffs and those local government agencies in those counties. And we're also at this time reaching out to counties in York, Lancaster, Chester, and those further around where we're starting to see these heavy rain bands continuing in the upstate of South Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Conley Ann Ragley, Department of Social Services.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon, South Carolina. I'm Conley Ann Ragley with the Department of Social Services. Our DSS mass care teams are continuing to be deployed to emergency operations shelters and shelters across the state to support all of the affected counties. We've begun closing many of the shelters open at the request of counties in response to Tropical Storm Debby. Our current census as of 1:30 p.m. today includes 8 total shelters that are open with a total census population of 22 citizens. As a reminder, DSS operates these shelters at the request of county operations, and our DSS professionals staff these shelters in coordination with the Salvation Army and the American Red Cross. We will continue to monitor situations and as counties request shelters to be closed, but at this time we have no further updates.
Thank you. Director Myra Reese, Department of Environmental Services.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. The priorities at the Department of Environmental Services remain the same. We're staying in very close contact and coordination with our local emergency officials. And I wanted to give you a few numbers and just current status of where we stand with some of our dams, water, wastewater, and coastal impacts. First, beginning with dams, no issues were reported overnight. And we still are only aware of one breach of an unregulated dam. I think there was one that was mentioned may have breached a second unregulated dam. No impacts to roads or homes, but we're trying to verify that. I believe that one was in Florence. But yesterday I mentioned that we would begin our post-storm assessments of dams on Friday. Our team at Department of Environmental Services, our dam safety program folks were very anxious to get out in the field today where they could safely do so. So we began those post-storm assessments of high and significant hazard dams in the state, including some of the pre-storm assessed dams as well. So we identified about 61 or 62 dams. As of 1:30 this afternoon, we have completed about 40 of those post-storm assessments, and I'm happy to report that no urgent or very concerning issues were identified in those post-storm assessments. As far as coastal impacts, beginning tomorrow, our Bureau of Coastal Management will be deploying teams to some of the known erosion hotspots along the coast to assess damage, including damage from the tornado that hit Edisto. These hotspot areas include Garden City, Isle of Palms, and Sullivan's Island. There also may be some impacts that we're not aware of, and we'd like to encourage residents along the coast to use our My Coast app to submit photos to us of beachfront damage. A special message to citizens who have private wells. Especially those that are in the PD and low country area where your private well may have been impacted by floodwaters. Please contact our private well hotline for guidance on information on how you can disinfect your well and how we can help you get the well tested and offer any assistance that we can. That number, that private well hotline number, is 1-888-761-5989. That number again is 1-888-761-5989. In closing, just briefly mentioning drinking water and wastewater facilities, we had one advisory in Berkeley County. It impacted probably about 100 residents, and the water system did a remarkable job going door to door to notify folks of that advisory. We should have some testing done, and that advisory lifted very soon. That's the end of my report.
Oh, thank you very much. Director Emily Farr, Labor Licensing and Regulation.
Thank you, Governor. It's a good day for South Carolina when we get toward the end of an emergency event, and I don't have a lot to report on our search and rescues. But we are all very thankful for all of the capability, the collaboration, and the support that we have for our South Carolina search and rescue teams, as well as our partners from other states and with FEMA that have been here through the duration of the storm with us. These teams have been mobilized and ready to respond throughout this entire storm, and at the height of the mobilization, we had 414 personnel ready to deploy and respond as necessary. In the days ahead, as flash flooding potential decreases, we will be releasing the out-of-state teams and releasing them back home. But that's not to say that we are not ready to respond to any flooding that may occur in the PD area if response is necessary. We have our extremely capable South Carolina state teams, that's South Carolina Task Force 1, as well as our regional task force teams that will be here and will remain to be deployed or to ready to be deployed to the PD area and the northeast region of the state if needed with potential flooding. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Director Andrew Bateman, Office of Regulatory Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Governor. Andrew Bateman, South Carolina ORS. We continue to be in frequent communication with utility representatives. As of right now, we stand at approximately 7,899 storm-related outages. The utilities are working diligently and around the clock to restore service as it is safe to do so. Thank you, Mr. Governor.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Governor, directed towards Director Reese, you mentioned that 62 dams began post-assessments, and so far 40 have been checked. Is that correct? 40 of those, is that within the Midlands or the Low Country?
There's probably about 8 counties. We identified those 62, number one, that those are areas we can safely go ahead and start the post-storm assessments. But we also looked at the total rainfall amounts, and it was a combination of hazard dams and significant hazard dams as far as classifications. And also, I think about 8 of the 11 pre-storm assessed dams that we did before. So currently, so far, there's no urgent issues that need immediate action. So we just feel like that's a really good sign for us so far. And we will continue those post-storm assessments through the weekend.
I want to emphasize everyone is saying so far because it's not over yet. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
For Director Powell or Secretary Powell, there's been a lot of talk about inspecting dams. What about bridges, particularly with rising river waters? Are there any bridges that you're inspecting or keeping an eye on ahead of that?
Sure. So, I mean, obviously, what we will do after a flooding event, so we will look at if a bridge gets closed, and there have been bridges closed because of the floodwaters. We will send out a bridge inspection team right after there, and they will go look at the bridge. And if there's any findings, we'll keep the bridge closed. But right now, everything we've seen so far is we're able to reopen the bridge. If there's approaches are typically what wash out during the storm, and we'll get in there and repair it as quickly as possible.
Do you have a sense about how many bridges have been closed by the storm so far?
I believe it's around 30, but I can get you the confirmed number.
Secretary Powell, as far as the road closures in the Midlands, where are those located and when do you expect those to open back up?
Sure. So there's several in Richland County. Some of them were already closed beforehand due to some of those rains we had beforehand. Where I would say the predominant number of closures we have right now are still in Jasper County, Colleton County down the lower half of the state. Now we're seeing a number of them in the PD, Florence, Dillon, Marlborough counties, and then a few up in York County as well. So it's across the state, and it's really just where those heavy rains are falling.
Another question. Yes, sir.
For Director Reese, again, you mentioned that DES was looking into a potential issue at an unregulated dam in Florence. Mm-hmm. Do you have any more details on that?
I don't. The staff are en route to go check that out. But here again, the report that we received was, and it makes sense, it's unregulated. So there's no risk to property or roads. So we're just going out there to verify if something else was going on with the dam that might inform us our expertise moving forward.
And you mentioned that the department's looking to continue these kind of post-storm exams through the weekend. Do you know how many dams y'all are looking to inspect?
There are going to be hundreds. And it all goes back to just the significant rainfall, and that's a very important trigger for us. So there'll be hundreds. We will keep a tally and information on our website so folks will know exactly what we're checking and where we are.
Any more questions? Yes.
Question for
There's one over there.
For Conley Ann, can we get an update on how many shelters have closed to this point, in addition to the 8 that are
You
open?
want to come in?
I like the doorway.
Great question. Thank you for that. We currently, as I mentioned, have 8 shelters that are open. During the course of the storm, we have closed 10 shelters, and they're in the following counties: Beaufort 2, Berkeley 2, Charleston 1, Dorchester 2, Georgetown 1, Jasper, and Orangeburg. We're slated also for 4 shelters to close by 3 o'clock today, and those are located, another one in Charleston, 2 facilities in Florence, and 1 in Williamsburg. Our total capacity at the high point of the storm was 127 individuals for census.
You got to know.
Director Bateman, before I came over, I was checking. It looks like there's some fairly significant power outages in Greenville and Spartanburg. Do you know if those are storm related?
I'm unaware of the outages in Greenville. I am aware that the 2 counties with the most storm-related outages as of 1 p.m. were York County with about 3,100 and Spartanburg County with a little over 2,200. Okay. Yes, sir.
Another question? Well, thank you very much. We just want to remind everybody out there that it's not over yet. We've passed some dangers, but there's still plenty, so don't let your guard down yet. Thank you very much.